Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gear Priority Podcast. My name is Justin, and I am your host. Today, we are taking a look at the Defy satellite communicator and SOS device. This device is intriguing because the device itself costs about half as much as its competitors, and the plans are about half as much again. So it's a very affordable option. I've been using the device for a couple months now, but wanted to bring Pete Cunningham from the Bullet Group, the company behind the Defy, onto the podcast or to chat more about why they decided to make the Defy and how they see themselves fitting into the market. Welcome, Pete. For the people at home, where are you calling in from? And can you give us a little bit of a background on your relationship with Bullet, Defy, kind of what your role is in there?
Sure. So Bullet, we're headquartered in the UK. So I'm sat here in HQ. We're about 30 miles west of London. I run the product and the product management team, the pre-sales team, so the kind of technical service side. So my official title is VP of Product Management.
I don't think a lot of people out there probably aren't familiar with the Bullet Group. And I think from what I understand, it's a pretty young company relative. I think you guys say on your website, a relatively young company in the telco space. What kind of got Bullet Group started, and where were your origins as far as like products or services?
Yeah, so we were founded in 2009, and the focus has always been on mobile phones, smartphones. It's a brutal space, right? It's a really difficult space to compete in, and so we always specialized in rugged devices, and that's how we differentiated ourselves in the market. One of the interesting things about Bullet, though, is that we don't typically use the Bullet brand on any products. So people may be more familiar with Caterpillar smartphones or Caterpillar phones. So we use the Caterpillar brand, and we also use the Motorola brand. So what we do is we really license global brands and then apply it to our products. Caterpillar is the longest standing relationship. We've been working with Cat now for over 10 years, and we've been building phones for them or under that license, under that brand for that amount of time.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's something I want to get into a little bit later, is how Motorola kind of fits into the picture, because I think Motorola is kind of the name that most people are going to be familiar with, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, curious kind of what their role is. But before we kind of jump into that, I want to, can you just give an overview for the people at home as to what the Defy device is and what it's accomplishing out there?
Sure. So we've actually got a couple of options. So again, as I talked about, building smartphones is a really tough segment, and the business has really been largely hardware driven.
Mhm.
And as we all know, the world is kind of moving away from hardware. Hardware's still important, but what we've been trying to do is diversify ourselves as a business. So continue to do smartphones, but also look at how we strengthen ourselves as a software and services company. And so about 4 years or so ago, we started investing in satellite technology. And as of 2013, what we've done is we've actually launched 3 satellite-enabled products. So we have 2 satellite-enabled smartphones, and then one under the Cat brand and one under the Motorola brand, and then we have the product that you're referring to, Motorola Satellite Defy Link. Actually, my marketing team will be disappointed I got the name wrong. It's the Moto Defy Satellite Link. Real mouthful. The marketing
Yeah.
team did a great job with it. But what that is it's a Bluetooth accessory that will connect to any smartphone, iOS or Android, and turn that smartphone into a satellite connected phone. And so what we've got with this is we've got satellite messaging, two-way messaging, pretty much text messaging. So at the moment, the standards don't allow any rich data services or voice. So it's text messaging over satellite. And some people will obviously be familiar with what Apple are doing with their satellite solution that dials straight into 911. We've also got an SOS function there. So we've got two-way messaging, we've got tracking functionality, imminent, and we've got SOS, which is rooted into a global response center, which is 24/7, 365, called Focus Point, and then they will triage that SOS alert for us. And so those are the products we've got. I think most of the conversation today is probably going to focus around the Moto Defy satellite link. But yeah, there's 3 devices.
Yeah, I think I saw the phone. I think there's probably some regional differences. Like I think the satellite link is available or is going to be probably available in most places because it can connect to any phone, whereas the phone versions are a little bit more difficult to kind of get around the world. I imagine.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Right. So the Defy link is global. The 2 phones obviously depend on the RF banding that they support, and so at the moment they haven't launched in North America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's something I want to kind of touch on a little bit. I think right now, I'm holding, for those who are watching, I'm holding up the Defy satellite link right now, and it's available in North America, and I think most of Europe at this point. Is that correct? And it can be rolling out to, I think Canada's the next step, sometime in like maybe October is the plan.
Yeah, it's imminent, right? We're kind of pretty close to lighting up Canada. There's stock in channel, so yeah, it's going to be it's in the coming weeks.
Okay, nice. And then do you have is it kind of like 2024 where there's going to be wider coverage kind of across most of the world? Because I think maybe maybe we can just dive into the weeds a little bit here as far as maybe skip ahead to talking about the satellite network, because I think a lot of people are probably familiar with the Iridium satellite network, which is what Garmin uses, then the Globalstar network, which is what Apple's using. I think Spot uses that one as well, which uses, if I'm remembering correctly, low orbit geosynchronous satellites, and then the Bullet system is using high orbit equatorial satellites. Is that correct me if I'm wrong on this one?
No, so I mean the easiest, the most common way that the satellites are referred to are GEO and LEO. Okay, so we're using geostationary satellites. Basically, these satellites are fixed in the sky. They follow the rotation of the Earth. So that satellite is always in the same position. So if you walk out of your front door and you connect to satellite, every single day that you walk out of your front door, that satellite will be in the same space. Okay.
Oh, okay.
The Iridium, the Globalstar satellites are low Earth orbit, so LEO. Okay, and these will travel around the Earth at about 5,000 kilometers an hour, and so they're constantly moving. So anyone that's familiar with the Apple solution, they have an interface that allows you to understand where that satellite is and connect to the satellite. Now, there's advantages and disadvantages of the satellites. Okay, the fact that ours are stationary in the in the sky means that we know where they are all the time. In theory, we can connect to the satellite much quicker, and it's consistent. The disadvantage of a geostationary satellite is it's a long way away, right? We're talking, these are about 23,000 miles away, which is, when you start thinking about the fact that we're sending messages to and from these, it's kind of mind-blowing. But they're a long way away. So the guys that are using a LEO satellite, a low Earth orbit satellite, would probably argue that you'll send and receive your messages quicker. Now, when we're talking about messaging, obviously, messaging is not a time-critical service. So if you need to wait another second or a couple of seconds to receive that message, it's not really the end of the world. I think obviously, as you move forward and you start looking at more data services, which is on the roadmap, then you're probably going to need the LEO satellites. But to get to that, we're a number of years off, and also to get to more data-rich services or voice over satellite, in many cases for a standard smartphone, you're going to need these new so these new satellites in the air. And the great thing about the solution that we've developed, actually, we can plug into LEO satellites if we want. So we're not restricted. It's just that actually, in terms of the partners that we've got, the geostationary solution seemed to be the right one for launch.
That makes sense. I think yeah, it's interesting, the aspect of like with the LEO satellites, they're constantly moving. I was in a canyon that had a very narrow view kind of at the sky, and I got linked to the Iridium network every 20 minutes because that's when the satellite kind of flew by. But it's interesting to know that like if you get a connection with the Defy satellite device, then in a certain location, you're probably going to get that connection reliably every single time that you go back to that location.
You will do, yeah.
Yeah, which is very interesting. I can definitely see kind of the pros and cons of each, but yeah, also cool that you have the opportunity and potential to connect to LEO satellites if you want to down the road, and you can kind of maybe have a mesh of those systems.
Yeah, and we've tried to design the solution so it's as flexible as possible. It's not, it's not possible for the user to connect to or choose, okay, I want to connect to LEO or I want to connect to GEO. So we'd need, if we were going to connect to low Earth orbit satellites, we'd need to launch a new device and build the implementation into the device. But we've got the flexibility within the business to be able to do
that. That's cool. I think it's before we kind of that was a good deep dive. I love talking about satellites and the deep dive into technology. I just want to run through for the people at home just kind of some specs and stats for the Defy satellite communicator devices, just in case people have some context out there. On my scale, it weighed 69 grams, so it's by far the lightest device that I have as far as all the satellite communicators. $150 US right now in the US, and I think that currently includes 12 months of the essential subscription plan, which is 30 messages a month, which is kind of awesome to have that built in, especially at $150 price point. 96 hours of battery life. I'm guessing that's similar to other satellite communicators with that, where that's based on like ideal clear sky scenarios. You're not dealing with tree cover and things like that.
Yeah, and also usage, right? Usage is it's a difficult one to judge. We've done a lot of testing. I've used the device a lot myself. I can get 7 days usage out of it, kind of sending a message once a day type thing. But equally, it depends where you're going to be, how much you're using it. So we're talking typically spec wise. We on the data sheets we talk about 4 to 5 days battery life.
Yeah, and that's I've kind of experienced 4 days, and I've been pleasantly surprised with satellite communicator, like brands out there being like fairly accurate with their with their battery estimates, because like some other devices they're like 5 days of battery life, and then you get like 1 day, or like cell phones where they say 48 hours, but that's accounting for not using your phone at all throughout the day or something crazy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's nice to see fairly accurate battery estimates. The other thing, I think, once people are kind of, if they have that free 12 months of subscription, once they're off that, like the subscription plans are pretty great as well. $5 per month for 30 messages. These are on 12-month contracts. $10 for 80 messages. $30 for 300 messages. And then there's the Freedom plan, where for $60 a year you get 250 messages, which I think is. Do you have some data right now on what the most popular plan is that people are signing? Most people are probably on that free plan, I guess, at this point. But any idea what might be most popular?
So I think we've had an offer in the US whereby people have been upgraded for a period of time. That offer's coming to an end. We have seen that some people have come in and automatically gone and bought that bigger plan. Some people have gone to Freedom. I mean, it's still early days, right? We're still in the first few months of launch. The subscriber base is growing, and like I said, we have had this offer on where everyone's been upgraded to the higher plan. So I think as we move into the fourth quarter, we'll start get a better feel of where people are landing.
Mm-hmm. I polled my YouTube audience and got about 3,000 responses for people who use satellite messengers, what plans they're on, and 75% were on the most basic plan from either like Zolio or InReach, which I think is 15 messages a month for those guys. So I think I imagine with Defy, we'll probably see people on that essential 30 messages a month plan, or probably I think the freedom, like for a lot of people out there who are going on 3-4 trips a year, the freedom plan is probably going to make the most sense for them.
I mean, it's probably something you're going to come to in a moment anyway, but what we tried to do is be very aggressive in terms of the device and the package. I think we wouldn't naturally see ourselves as a direct competitor to the Zolios and the Garmin InReach. I mean, we kind of see those devices a little bit more, I'm going to go off grid for a period of time, a little bit more hardcore. Where we see the opportunity with this device is a lot more mass market. However, saying that, I think naturally, because satellite communications has been expensive in the past, I think naturally where you see the early adopters coming are from people that are familiar with Zolios and InReach and those other devices, because those are the guys that understand the technology. As we move forward, I think we really see the way that this is positioned as a safety and security device, right? So actually, I can chuck it in my glove box, and if I'm driving along, have an accident, and I need some coverage. I've got a device there. A great example is, the roads here in the UK in the winter are awful. Big holes everywhere. Goodness knows what we pay our taxes for. But my wife went to work one morning, kind of 7 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, and she hit one of these potholes in the road, tire split. Okay, luckily she was, somewhere where we did have cell coverage, and I think in Europe we are pretty blessed with good cell coverage. In the UK, the biggest network's probably got, I don't know, 90+% geographic coverage. Where when you're looking at the US, Canada, Australia, these are markets that there's huge areas where there's no network coverage. So in that situation, she got out and she could make a phone call and called and said, "Hey, I need some help. Tires burst." But if you see a situation there where you're a lady, it's dark, you've broken down on the side of the road, you don't have any cell coverage, this is now a godsend. So we do see, the initial traction that we've had is in that traditional core market of people that are familiar with this. But I think as we move forward, we see the opportunities is also in that kind of safety and security segment as well, which is much more mass market.
And I think that lines up with some of the stats I've seen around, I think roadside assistance has been creeping up as far as what's been triggering SOSs and then being responded to by some of the SOS kind of triaging units out there. And I think like you were saying, the roadside is huge. Like I was out camping in an area that didn't have cell phone reception. Temperatures got down to minus 50 degrees Celsius, and the oil in my car froze, and I wasn't able to get out. So but because I had a satellite communicator, I was able to message my wife's dad, and he was able to come pick me up. And then we waited a week until the temperatures got up to a reasonable minus 20, and then we were able to go back out and get the car.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's also the difference between the solution that we're delivering and perhaps the solution that Apple have implemented, where with Apple they will route directly into 911. Ours is going off to a dedicated 24-hour, as I said, 24/7, 365 response center. And so that does give you the flexibility to be able to trigger an SOS that perhaps isn't life and death, right?
Yep.
If I've got in the situation you just described, right, you don't need blue light services, right? You just need someone to come and pick you up, or a tow truck to take the car away. That's not blue light. That's not 911. So with the solution that we're offering, you do have the flexibility to be able to trigger an SOS and say, hey, I need a tow truck. I've broken down. So the way that we see it is not every SOS is kind of an emergency. Some of it is just, I need help, or can you tell my wife that the train's broken down, or whatever it may be. So it does give you a lot more flexibility in that sense.
That's awesome. Yeah, I agree. That's one of my favorite features of having the communication device too, and the two-way. Based on, I've had some chats with search and rescue people and first responders, and the two-way communication that you get after pressing SOS is they've mentioned to me is essential. And I haven't pressed the SOS on the Defy device, but I assume like once you press SOS and connect with the triaging group, you have that two-way communication with them. Is that right?
Yeah, and if you're in an SOS situation, you're then in unlimited messages, right? So those messages that you're using from an SOS point of view aren't coming out of your package or your monthly allowance. So what happens? You press the SOS button, the device will send your GPS location to the response center. You also then through the phone get prompted to answer some multiple choice questions, very similar to the way Apple do it, right? Just gives more context about your situation. And then the response center will come back to you and start an open two-way conversation. The great thing about the device satellite link as well is actually SOS will work independent of the phone. So for me, last week I did my first ultra marathon, right? During COVID, I got into running a lot more. I've done a couple of marathons, now my first ultra marathon. And so I don't really want to be taking a phone with me, because if I go out for a couple of hour run, phones are big. So now what I can do is just click this onto my rucksack or whatever it be, and I can check in. It will send my location, but also if there's a situation where I do need SOS, I can obviously hit the SOS button. With that situation, you're probably going to you obviously need to stay in the location that you're sending that SOS from, because it drops your coordinates to the response center, and then if I disappear another 2 miles down the road, they're not going to know where I am. But you do have that facility with the device. But I guess the important thing is, SOS is just one part of the proposition, right? It's almost like a value add in terms of what we're delivering. This is really about enabling people to be connected when cell coverage isn't there. And like we said before, US, Canada, Australia, these are huge markets where cell coverage is sporadic in many areas.
Yeah, and that's I've been I'm in the backcountry about 100 days of the year in areas without cell phone coverage, and I've sent thousands of satellite messages, but never had to press the SOS button. So that's going to be the situation for most people, I think. There's a fraction of the number of SOS calls relative to satellite messages being sent. So that's going to be the primary thing that most people are using it for. It seems like there is a lot of similar. You mentioned that maybe the Defy isn't meant to be a direct competitor to the InReach and Zoleo, but there's definitely a lot of feature overlap and functionality overlap. How is Bullet and Defy able to get the price down for the device down to one, like half the price for the device, half the price for the subscriptions relative to the competitors? Like how's that happening? Because that's kind of a game changer.
So what we've done is we've kind of built the solution on new technology, standards based. So your cell phone, right, typically will comply to something that's called 3GPP specifications. And in these specifications, it kind of writes down how phones should work. And so what's been introduced in the latest specifications is how NTN, non-terrestrial networks, satellite networks, will start being integrated with cellular. And so what we've done is we've worked with MediaTek, who are a chipset provider, similar to Qualcomm, biggest chipset vendor and provider in the world. So we've worked with those guys. We've also worked with a partner called Skylay, that are based in, on the west coast of the US. And obviously we've worked with Inmarsat, EchoStar, Legato from a satellite provider. And the whole solution has been built on new technology, which has meant that we can be a lot more efficient. And hence, we've tried to be aggressive on the price of the device itself, but also then the fact that it's all built on new technology means it's a much more efficient way of being able to send messages. So we can be a lot more aggressive in terms of the cost of sending messages. Because, like I said before, right, this technology has been around for a long time, but it's been limited to certain segments because it's always been a very expensive technology.
Yeah.
And so we don't think it's. Yeah, I was going to say we don't think it's niche because people don't want it. We think it's been limited because actually it's just been too expensive for everyday people.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's interesting, like with the efficiency that you mentioned, is that like to send a message or receive a message, is it less like kilobytes that are going to the satellite and coming back, or is it a lower cost per kilobyte in order to make that exchange?
Yeah, it's the latter. It's a more efficient, lower cost way of being able to send and receive those messages.
Okay, that's like, is that just due to the partnership with like Inmarsat and EchoStar?
It's due to the way the service has been built, and the fact that it's all built on new technology as opposed to kind of legacy systems that have been in place for many, many years. And also we thought it was really important for us as a small vendor, right? Let's make no bones about it. Apple have gone away and done their own satellite solution. We have to take a standards-based approach to what we're implementing. And now we're really about exploring about how we can work with other people to kind of implement that technology.
And like interesting that like you mentioned Apple having their technology. I think the MediaTek chip, like you guys have put it into phones already with the Cat and Motorola phones, or to add satellite connectivity. I imagine we're probably going to see, and I've heard Qualcomm's also coming out with a satellite connectivity chip. As more phones are kind of adding these chips, do you plan on partnering with more phone companies in order to kind of provide some of the service around the satellite communication and the SOS service delivery? Is that kind of
I think
moving into a long term plan?
Yeah, I mean it's obviously difficult to comment on what's happening in the future, but kind of if we step back, right? There's been a huge amount of conversation about satellite technology in the mobile space over the last year, 2 years. Okay, you see things like in the US, T-Mo, Starlink. You see announcements with AT&T and Vodafone working with AST. In Australia, Telstra are working with Starlink and OneWeb, right? And I think the reason that you're seeing that is because if you look at the numbers, cellular coverage or cellular networks cover about 60% of the world's population. However, they cover about 12% landmass, right? It's the coverage that they provide of the planet is incredibly small. So I think what you're seeing is you're seeing more people looking to satellite really to complement terrestrial cellular networks and deliver the next generation of connectivity. And so we're really excited, right? Because we're at the forefront of this. And you've got different partnerships kicking off around the world. There's a lot of operators that still really aren't separated. A lot of carriers, operators that really aren't settled on their strategy. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to implement. So where you've got some big names that are very clear and they've made announcements. There's a lot of people that don't know what to do. So we think that there's a great opportunity for us, both with our own branded devices, but also you're going to see over the coming years, you're going to see this feature implemented more and more in terms of smartphones. But you're also going to see this span into a whole host of other devices as well. So I think what we're doing is we're trying to establish ourselves as one of the market leaders here. We've got a very flexible solution that is not satellite restricted. Okay, so we're very agnostic in terms of geo versus LEO. We're very flexible in terms of chipsets and other elements. So we're very open, and we're having lots of conversations with different partners across the industry about how we can help other people with delivering devices to the market.
That's interesting. Yeah, so bringing that expertise and knowledge to some of these partnerships and other companies. That's cool. I'm curious. We touched on the beginning with Motorola, and now after talking about some of these partnerships, especially with devices, how does Motorola fit into the situation? Like, what's their overall role? Because they're kind of the main name on the device, especially as we see it in North America here.
Yeah, that's right. And so we've had a relationship with Motorola for certainly 3 or 4 years. It could well have started. COVID confuses everything, right? Time.
Yeah.
We're COVID. It's like, was that? But for 3, 4, 5 years now, we've been working together with Motorola. Okay. The relationship started because Bullet are experts in delivering rugged devices. We got together with Motorola and they said, "Hey, can you do a rugged smartphone for us?" And so we did the initial Defy. Again, I think it was more European based. I don't think we launched it in North America. And then off the back of that, we've since done the second Defy 2, and now this device. So that relationship has been in place for multiple years. And it really started because of our expertise in rugged phones, okay? But now, obviously, as we talked about, we've been investing in satellite technology. We sat around the table with them and said, "Hey, we've got this great device. We think it fits really nicely with what you're doing." And they were really excited to support with the brand.
So is it Bullet
sorry,
engineers?
Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think I was going to go on to answer because I realized I hadn't really given any insight. So we work really closely with them. It's like it's all our engineering, but then we have to work really closely with Motorola from a software point of view, from a quality point of view, because obviously they want to ensure that their brand is protected and the product meets the requirements that they have in place. So we during the project, we have regular calls with Motorola, so the engineering team is integrated into what we're doing. The quality teams are integrated, so it's much more collaborative in terms of the device coming to market than some of the other relationships where we've had that a brand may just be concerned about how that brand looks on the product. Versus and then kind of leave everything that helps to us.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my question about how, like, where the different engineering teams kind of fit into all of it. So it sounds like it's most of the design work and engineering work is happening on Bullet's side, but it's in coordination and kind of just like conversations with Motorola to make sure it hits their design philosophy and fits into their overall brand
Yeah,
vision.
they have things called big rules. which we have to ensure that we meet, and they're pretty tough in terms of the standards that we need to meet, which is understandable, right? They're a huge global brand, and it's important that's not impacted from just pushing out a product that doesn't meet the standards that they're looking for. But equally, right, it's in our best interest, and we've been doing rugged devices for a long time, so we've got a lot of expertise there.
That makes sense. And so with the satellite communicator, is Motorola like making the device? Is it going through their manufacturing pipeline, or did you do a separate kind of sourcing exercise for that?
Yeah, no. So it's all been manufactured by Bullet, right? So we designed the device, we manufactured the device. Um, you and again, like I say, the Moto are involved with quality requirements. They audit the factory. It's actually we use one of the factories that Motorola use themselves, right? So there's a lot of consistencies in what's happening, but the product is designed by Bullet. It's manufactured by our engineering team came up with the design, and the factory is one that both Bullet and Motorola use for phones.
Okay, nice. And I have I have maybe a couple questions, at least one about the device itself, as far as like I imagine like to hit $150 price point, and especially with the weight of 70 grams, um, you have to kind of make some choices as far as what's going to be included on the device. Battery life is kind of an easy one. It's just the bigger the battery, the heavier and bulkier it's going to be, but the longer battery life you're going to have. So I guess question one, how did you guys settle on kind of that 96-hour, like 4-day battery life? And did you have a target weight that you wanted to hit, or did you have a target battery life that you wanted to hit?
So we were really driven by the size of the device. So what we wanted it to be was pretty much credit card size. Credit card size, and then the thickness of a standard smartphone, and that's what we achieved. Battery life, from a product perspective, battery life was always a concern when we went through, right? Because we had assumptions about how it was going to perform, but obviously until you start getting samples, you don't really know how it's going to perform. And so battery was a real concern. In the end, we were super surprised by the battery life. It actually exceeded.
So you're pleasantly surprised by the battery life once you got the samples.
We were, and what that's then allowed some flexibility in terms of how we optimize the device as well. So, so a great example is one of the software drops that we've just released in terms of the application and on the device. We brought to the forefront a little bit more. We've made it easier for people to see how much battery life they've got, how much signal strength they've got. So because we were before, we've been through a real learning phase here, right? We've launched the device. It was a good device, but we've had lots of feedback from customers, which is great, right? And what we really tried to do is take that feedback on board and kind of help out with some of the pain points that these real life users are seeing. We can test as much as we want, but we're not going to see the stuff that kind of real people are using when they're out and about. So with the new software, what we've done, the new app, what we've done is we've brought battery life, we've brought signal strength out of some of the menus and made it a lot more easy for people to see. One of the advantages that we have from the battery life is it meant that what we can do is we can compile the device a lot more to understand its signal strength, so we can reflect that to a user. So the benefit of the battery performance is helped out by allowing us to kind of optimize other areas without sacrificing battery performance at all, which has been really helpful.
I've been impressed over the last couple of months with how quickly you guys have been pushing out updates and kind of addressing those pain points. Like with some companies out there, like to even just to address what you just mentioned would be like a multi-month long process that they would need like tons and tons and tons of feedback, and then the software engineering going into it. What's allowing you guys to kind of iterate quickly and stay nimble with from a software standpoint?
Yeah. I think we're obviously small, which means that there's a smaller number of people making decisions. We are, but I think we obviously wanted to launch it. We thought the product was great and was ready to be launched. But I think what we've been very conscious of is utilizing as much of that feedback as possible. And we're very, across the business, we are very active in terms of looking at reviews on various retailers' websites. There's a Facebook group, and people are providing feedback direct through there, and I think it's just it's a really nice environment to be able to garner pain points that people have, and we are small, which means we can resolve things as quick as possible. Now, don't get me wrong, there's stuff that we still need to fix, and there may be people watching this that are like, well, this is a pain in the backside. It's been doing this. You can fix this. There's a whole host of stuff, both from bugs that we're aware of. Hopefully none that are too critical, but there's bugs that are being resolved, but also feature enhancements as well. And we're probably not as quick as I'd like us to be, but I think we're doing okay, and we've made some real substantial improvements over the last few months. So anyone that had this device from day one and is using it now, hopefully they would have seen the quality of the service that's been delivered has improved substantially. A great example is, if we're really honest, one of the things that we didn't get right is it was a complicated device to set up, right? And we probably didn't provide people enough support. So simple things like we put a little insert in the box, and we've changed the position of that insert in the box so it sits directly underneath the device. You take the device out, you see this little insert, and it gives you 3 or 4 steps in terms of, you follow those steps, you're going to be up and running straight away. Day one, we dropped the ball on it. And so, we've tried to react as quickly as possible to fix some of the issues that we had, because like I say, it was a great product when we launched, but there were some areas that we needed to improve. And so, as an organization, we've been working really hard to try and resolve those issues and fix the things that people have kindly pointed out to us.
Yeah, and I think you guys are doing a great job. I think that's a lot of that comes down to company culture, and it's cool to kind of see that making those improvements is just kind of part of what you guys value and what you're doing with the device. I think there's always going to be improvements and bugs and tweaks. I think we would be getting a new iPhone every single year if that wasn't the case. And still dealing with bugs in software that's like Windows is probably a great example that it's had some same bugs for the last 20, 30 years. So hopefully it's not quite like that. But I think it's been commendable as how fast you guys have been iterating on the software side of things and making changes. So that's awesome to see. And I think something that I'm curious about, just with the device now being out for a little while, is have you had any SOSs come through that have been triggered?
I don't believe that we've had any real life SOSs. I think that there's been 1 or 2 accidental. There was one of my colleagues that accidentally pressed it. Anyway, let's not go into that. Bless him. He won't do it again. But I think we had one other person press it accidentally. But I don't think we've had any real life SOSs
Is it?
activated as of yet. No.
Do you have any stats around the number of messages that have been sent, or like even how many devices have been activated that are out there right now?
Yes.
Or is
So
you don't, no need to share? I know that might be kind of company secret information,
Yeah,
but
no, it was there was a trade show recently, IFA in Germany, and we were out talking to people, and we were really pleased to say that we've now had over 850,000 messages sent over
Mhm.
the platform. So
Nice.
yeah, when we think that we kind of launched the phones um, Q2, mid Q2. That's pretty good traction in the first few months. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that is a stat that I can share with you.
Yeah,
Um, I don't think there's many other stats I can share with you beyond that.
that's fair. And I think before we kind of wrap up, what's do you have anything you want to share with people as far as like kind of what's next for the bullet devices, what's coming down the pipe, what they can kind of maybe be excited for, that you guys have in the
Yeah,
works?
that's always a difficult question to
Mhm.
answer. In a previous life, I was a market analyst and sat on the other side of the table and asked that question a lot. So instead of just straight butting it and telling you no comment, I mean, we are, um, as we talked about earlier, right? One of the big focuses is how we expand geographically.
Mhm.
We need to do that a little bit more quickly. So Canada is coming on very shortly. You will see certain parts of Latin America lighting up. Over, we may even get some of that lit up in Q4, so before the end of the year. And then the big focus is turning other markets on, in Q1. Um, we're working through whether there's a way to kind of blanket turn the globe on, or whether it's going to be kind of region by region. So we're
Mhm.
still working through that. And then the other thing that we're really working hard on, which kind of goes back to the point that we touched on before, is really looking at um, what people are feeding back to us and how we can improve the service. So both from a bug perspective, what's really annoying people, but also from new features.
Mhm.
So tracking is going to be switched on in. Hopefully, that will be switched on before the end of September. So tracking will be coming imminently, and so again, just another feature to make the service richer. So there's a lot of work going on in terms of um, adding value to existing customers. And then I think what we're looking at is a little bit about where are there more opportunities. That's a big focus, and actually, how can we continue to drive more subscribers to the platform? Is it through new devices? Is it through new segments? And so that's the immediate focus. So it's like I say, it's difficult for me to say, hey, yes, we're going to do this,
Yeah,
because I know
I
if I
get it for
said
sure.
that, my marketing team are going to be screaming at me, my PR team.
Like you could
But
probably say
yeah,
over the next 10 years we may do something, we may do this,
yeah,
but that's not really that useful.
yeah,
Especially I
and
know with software development, it's timelines are always tough, especially with new technologies and everything. It's
yeah. So,
understandable for
but
sure.
I'd like to try and give you some insight into what we're doing, as opposed to just saying,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, I can't tell you. So
Yeah.
hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into what's coming in the coming months.
No, that's great info. And I think you just triggered one more question. That's like why not turn on the entire globe? Like what's the limiting factor for having to focus on different regions as you go?
So today it's been cost. So essentially, if we go and we turn on a new market, we have to pay for that coverage. So what we've been looking at is how do we ensure that there's enough demand in those markets.
Mm.
And what we're trying to do is work around a way that actually can we do something more strategic that allows us to turn on a bigger segment of the world, if not global coverage. it's never going to be global, right? There's some markets, Iraq, Afghanistan, India, China, right, where geopolitical reasons, government restrictions, you can't enable service in those markets.
Yeah.
But in the other markets, where we can, is there a way of being able to enable coverage in those markets in a much more cost-effective way to be able to light up those opportunities? So that's something that we're trying to work through with our partners as well. We think we are making progress there as well. So hopefully, whereas we've had to be a little bit more targeted in 2023, as we move into 2024, we may be able to unblock that and maybe turn on regions a lot faster.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's been a great device. I think if people are interested in checking it out, I'll have links in the video description to different places kind of around the world, depending on where you are. And any kind of closing thoughts that you want to share with the my audience out there before we sign off?
Probably not. In fairness, I think Justin, we've had a great conversation. We've been through lots of things, and so without going over the other points that we've talked about, I think it's been a good conversation, and hopefully it's valuable to the people that are kind of dialed in.
I think so, especially I think especially for something that people might not be necessarily familiar with, going into a deep dive, seeing a face kind of behind the company, I think helps build that trust, especially the device that you're maybe putting a lot of your safety and trust into. So I think it's been awesome. It's been a great conversation. I know I've learned a lot about the Defy devices and Bullet. So thanks a lot for coming. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
No problem. And if you want to have a chat in the future, you know where I am.
For sure. Thanks a lot, Pete.
Excellent.
Talk to you later.